several different programs that are available to you. And everybody should be looking at my screen where we're looking at the Softchalk Cloud. Now, the Softchalk Cloud has been around for many years right now, and actually it was the first learning object repository and content authoring solution that was designed specifically for educators. Now, what I'm going to attempt to do, and I guess I have about 45 minutes, I'm actually going to try to create brand new content and then put it into Moodle. And we'll see how we can do that. First, before I do that, a lot of people ask, well, how can I create content quickly and easily? Well, first, notice that I've logged into the Softchalk Cloud as Jay Horvat. That's just going to be me for today. I'm then going to go into this area called Softchalk Share. Softchalk Share is an area it's our open educational resource repository where you can see lessons that we're currently featuring, and these change weekly. We can also see content that has been recently shared. Anything that's shared in this repository is part of Creative Commons, so you know that you can use it and modify it anytime that you would like to. We also can search the repository for different content. I'm going to be searching the repository. I'm going to look for a particular, let's say, field or a particular topic. And today I'm going to deal with traumatic brain injury. So that's what I'm going to look for. So I could type in that phrase, and I surround the phrase by quotation marks, and then I tell it to search. Now, what we give you the ability to store within the Softchalk Cloud are learning objects. That could be an activity or a game of some type that you want your students to perform. They can be scoreable opportunities, or they can be presentation style opportunities. You also can store groups of quiz questions called quiz groups. In addition, you can store lessons, which can be defined in a variety of methods or a variety of ways. I'm going to define a lesson as content and activities and quiz questions that my students are going to look at. And that content could be graphic, text, audio, video, lots of other different kinds of elements, and also courses. I'm going to just do a search, and it's now working really hard in my browser, and it found two different items. We can see the owner of those items. If we click on the owner name, we could actually get more information about them. I'm going to look at this first one, and it shows me a preview of that content. I now can start looking through this preview, and when I see it, I notice, wow, there's 8 pages here. I can go to a score item and see that there's 5 points. I'm not sure why, but there's 5 points in this particular lesson. Now, I'm showing this because I want to show you the different kinds of navigation that people can create. Here we have a very open navigation where students can point and see all of the pages that are available in the lesson. They can then go to that particular topic, and then they actually have the ability to try different kinds of content in this lesson. Now, what I'm going to do with this lesson, because remember I'd said, what's a quick way to create content? Well, the quick way is just to copy that lesson to your own storage area. I'm going to do that, and I see that my browser is working really hard up here. Well, while I'm waiting for it to work, it lets me now show all of the different storage capabilities within the Softchalk Cloud. We have my lessons and courses, which is where we currently are, and we then see that lesson that we just created. That's quick. That's a very quick way, obviously, of creating content. Now, when I look at the lesson this time, and I scroll below the lesson itself, it shows me that I have 3 different methods of sharing that content with my students by putting it into a learning management system. I can share it by using a hyperlink. I can share it by using an LTI or Learning Tool Interoperability link, and I can share it by using an embed code. So I have those 3 methods that I can use, copy them, and paste them into my learning management system. That's the quickest way to create content. Now, can I create my own content? Sure. We look at different content items. I have learning objects, and you'll notice that John has actually created quite a few of them. If we look at one of them, this is called a hotspot activity. And what it is, it's a graphic where students roll over different terms of the graphic, and they get to see lots of information appear behind that particular area of the graphic. Really pretty neat. Now, what I'm going to be doing is creating new content. I'm going to create a lesson, and I'm going to bring in this particular activity as well as other activities that we can create with the Softchalk Create program. I also can easily create poll questions where I'm asking my students questions. Here we have a question on, I want my students to pick their favorite instructional designer. When I click on a title from that list view, I get to see a preview of the question, and my students, I also get to see the results of that particular poll question. I can also easily create ratings, and here I have a rating that I'm going to place inside of my lesson also. When I click on the list, it shows me a preview, and then it also shows me how my students have voted. And then finally, we can store just regular digital formatted files. I have PDF files that I've placed in my cloud storage. I have graphic files that I've placed in my cloud storage, as well as media files. I might have some audio and some video stored in here. And I even have packaged content. If I'm using other programs like Camtasia or programs similar to that, and I produce content with them, it doesn't produce a single item. It produces a package. And what I can then do is use that package within my Softchalk cloud. I can just store it in the cloud and use it in the lesson itself. Well, let's now try and create content. I'm going to click on the Create Content option, which starts a process. The first part is it's going to download the Softchalk Create program from the cloud onto the computer I'm sitting in front of. So I'll click OK. Notice that I can have it do this automatically from now on. And now it asks me, okay, now that it's downloaded, what do you want to do with it? Well, I want to run the program. And again, I can tell it to do this automatically. I just like to show everybody what's actually happening. And it's now loading or opening the Softchalk Create program, personalized just for Jay Horvath, the person that I've logged in as. And there's the Softchalk Create program. We may get a little splash screen. Well, that's pretty nice. I'll click OK. And now I'm ready to create content. Just like any other Windows program, I can go to my title bar, double-click to maximize the window, or I can use the window control tools that are there. I like maximizing it because it just gives me a better view of the content. And now I'm ready to start creating my content. Well, I can create content by typing. But typing in 45 minutes is going to slow me down quite a lot. So what I'm going to do is use what I've already created, and you'll see that appear hopefully on your screen in just a couple of seconds here, where I've got a Word document. Now think of this as a handout that I used to give students. Now, if I scroll down and I see all of the graphics that are there, and there's quite a lot of it, I'm going to look at this particular graphic, And I want you to notice that I have used the alt text box in Word to make the graphic accessible to students who have a visual disability. I also noticed that there's a hyperlink in this document, as well as styled paragraphs, heading 1, heading 2, and even a heading 3. And if I scroll, I'll also notice I've got bulleted text. So I've got a lot of stuff going on in this particular document. What I'm now ready to do is just select it all. I just use keyboard shortcuts, and then I'm going to copy it to put it on my clipboard. Now, once it's on the clipboard, I then come back into my Softchalk Create program. Oh, incidentally, if you have any questions, use the chat dialog to ask questions, and I'll hopefully be able to see them and try to answer them as they come in. I'm also then ready to go to my Edit menu from Softchalk Create, and I'm going to paste it. Very quickly, in the very center of your screen, you're going to see a little message that says converting. It was really fast, but it converted that Word document into accessible HTML. Let me emphasize that again. This is now accessible HTML. That means when I look at this instructional design that says it's bold and italic, that came in from Word, our program has converted that to the ADA guideline standards of strong and emphasis. Plus, it did a lot of other things to make my content accessible. Now, what about that information that came in from Microsoft Word, those graphic items? Well, if I would modify this image, notice that there is an alt text line that uses all of that information that came from Microsoft Word. We allow you to actually separate it rather than it being just the alt text box, which anyone can see. You can leave the title in that box and put the long description that actually, this is what the students or describes the image. It would only be read by a screen reader. Well, I like that quite a lot. I'll then just click OK. Now let's take this image and modify it also. What I'm going to do is put it on the right-hand side of the screen rather than the left, and I'll click OK. So I've now created a lot of content. And you'll notice that it remembered graphics that came in from Microsoft Word. It also remembered the hyperlink from Microsoft Word. That hyperlink can be modified if I would want to. I just wanted to look at it, and then I'll click OK. Now let's see what all of this is going to look like. I'm ready to preview this, and this is going to let me look at it in a local version of my browser. So I'll preview it, I'll save my changes, and that's what we've just created. A table of contents page showing us all of the topics that are part of the lesson. I can point, click, and navigate to any topic. When I'm in the lesson itself, I get an on-the-page sidebar that again shows me all of the topics. I'm going to close that and come back into the Softchalk Create program. I'd like my students to be able to navigate to each one of my instructional designers. So I'm going to make Edgar Dale part of my navigation list. And I do that simply by clicking on the paragraph and then making it a heading styled paragraph. I'm going to do the same thing for Robert Gagne, and I guess also for David Merle. So I'm going to make each one of those part of my navigation. Now let's see what this would look like. I'll preview it and save the changes, and you'll notice they're now included in my navigation list. I'm going to close that. Come back into Create. I'm going to actually add more navigation here because Edgar Dale, Robert Gagne, and David Merle are instructional designers, and I want people to know that. So I'm just going to put in some additional text. And now you see why I don't want to do a lot of typing. I'm very slow. I'm going to make this into part of my navigation also. I'll make that a heading 1 because it's a main topic. Now, I have a word misspelled. Well, that's okay because we have a spell check built into our program where we can check our spelling. I'm ignoring a lot of things. I'm going to until I get here, and then I want it to replace it. So I fix my spelling. Now when I preview this once again, and I save my changes, things look really nice. I get this really nice topical outline for my lesson. I'm going to close it and come back in to create. Can I add my own images inside of my lesson? Sure. I just place the cursor where I want the image to go, and then I can click on my Insert Image tool, select the image that I want just by navigating to where I know I have images stored, and I'll navigate out here till I can find, and I hope I have an image of Robert Gagne. I'll select that. And I want text to wrap around it, so I'll put it on the left-hand side. I'll give it a title. If I wanted to, I could put in a longer description and also put a border around it and offset the text from the image itself. I'm going to increase my horizontal spacing, and I'll click OK. It's that easy to add images inside of our lessons. Now let's start adding some things that make the students have to do something to see information. Well, we've already created one. It's a hyperlink. Let's create another hyperlink. All I have to do is select the word that I want to use or phrase that I want to use as my anchor text. Then I can click on the hyperlink tool, type in the URL that I want to send my students to, and then click OK. Very simple to create a hyperlink. We also can do a little bit more than that. In 1946, Edgar Dale wrote a really neat little booklet called Audio-Visual Methods in Teaching. And what I want to do is make this into a link that would allow my students to view that book. All right, well, I'm going to do that again by going to my hyperlink tool. I'm going to select a file that I want to use. I just navigate to where I have PDF files stored, and I then have this Audio-Visual Methods in Teaching. I'll open it. And I want this to open in a new window, so I'll click OK. So it's really simple to create links that send people to other websites, links that also display information. As a matter of fact, going just a little bit further, I can even insert an iframe link, and that's a link that's going to display content within my lesson. Now, I've stored some content in my cloud. So I'm going to look inside of my Softchalk cloud. I'll expand the My Files area. And I like actually storing files like PDF files in this in my files area, because if I've created the PDF, and let's assume I'm going to use this in multiple lessons, or even if I use it in one lesson, if I've created it, there is a chance that I have a typo. What I can do if I leave it in the cloud is simply replace the original version with the new updated version, and it will display in every lesson correctly that I've placed it in. So I'm going to select this Gagne Learning Theory. I'm going to insert it into my lesson as an iframe, and I'm going to leave it referenced in the cloud. I'll click OK. I get to determine the width and the height that I want to display this particular lesson or this particular document. I'm going to make it 850 by 500, and I'll click OK. And I've now put in an iframe placeholder about, or that shows that Gagne's conditions of learning. We'll look at it in just a little while. I also, up here, have put in information that I want my students to think about as instructional design, as different items, as a process, as a discipline, etc. But now what I want to do is put my definition behind those phrases. And I'm going to do that by inserting what we call a text popper. A text popper can have a title. I'm going to put in a very simple title here. And this is as a process, instructional design as a process. And then down below it, I'm going to put in what I want my students to know about instructional design as a process. If I wanted to, I even have the ability to bring in audio files. And I'm going to use an audio file that I have used in other classes and stored in the My Files storage. So I'll just expand that just a little bit. And I'm going to use this Hans Wave file, and I'll insert it into my text pop-up. Now I'm going to leave this in the cloud just in case I need to modify it at some point. I'll click OK. And then I want it to be an inline player. By making it an inline player, I have the ability to type in the text that is being spoken in that particular audio file. So I just click here and type, and then I click OK. And I've now added an audio file or an audio component to this particular text pop-up. I'm going to make it stick on my screen, and I'll click OK. Now, normally, I would do the same thing for the other three items here. But looking at the clock on the wall, I realize I'm kind of running out of time, so I'm just going to do one item. Now, let's ask a quiz question. Real simple quiz question. I'm going to insert a quiz popper. I'm going to make it a true-false statement. And now I'm ready to type in the statement that I want my students to evaluate. I'm going to make this one really pretty simple. So I'll just click and type. I can modify the text that's being displayed. I can emphasize text, make it bold. I can even make it italic if I would like. I even can add images inside of this statement dialog. It's a true statement. I can give feedback for when the answer is right or wrong. I can modify what's there. I can show the students what the correct answer is if I want to. And I also have the ability of putting in a hint. And finally, choose how I want the question to appear, how many points it could be worth, and it can be worth anywhere from 0 to 100. I'll let it be worth 2, and then I get to decide whether I want my students to be able to retry answering the question. I'll click OK, and I've now created a quiz question. I can place questions anywhere that I would like them to go. Well, what I have decided is right here, I now want to ask my students a whole series of questions. I'm going to insert an activity. We've got over 20 different activities that we can add into our lessons. I'm going to be adding a drag and drop activity where I can type in an item, and I'll put in Softchalk Cloud as my item, and then I could type in a match for that particular item. And you remember when I first started, I'd said, well, the Softchalk Cloud is the world's first learning object repository and content authoring solution for educators. I know that's a shameless ad, but I put it in, and then I add it to my list. I can also bring in a list of terms that I've previously created and stored as a text file. So I can reuse content in lots of different situations. I now have 7 matching pairs. I'm going to go to my options and choose a point value for this. I'll click OK, and I've now created a drag and drop activity. Well, that's pretty good also. I also want to put in a video dealing with the ADDIE model. What I'm going to do is use a tool that we have called my media search tool. And the media search tool will allow me to search different repositories for content. I'm going to search YouTube. I'll then click on search. I'll then scroll through until I find something dealing with the ADDIE model. And if I scroll through long enough, I think I'm going to find one that I really want to use. Here it is. And then I insert it as a widget tool into my lesson. I can also add my own media simply by inserting media, selecting the video, and then finding it locally stored on my computer. So we've now put in some simple quiz questions. We've put in a scoring opportunity for our students. We put in audio and video. I'm going to scroll down, and right at the end of this lesson, I'm now ready to insert a whole series of questions, a quiz group. And I will call this my demo group for my group name. I'm always actually going to get these questions from the Softchalk cloud. I've already stored them there. So I'm going to look inside of my learning objects for my instructional design quiz questions. And you'll notice we can see activities differ from quiz questions because of the symbols that are there. So here's my ID quiz. I'm going to insert that into my lesson. It's now there, ready for me to use. And I like all of the questions that are here, except maybe I've already asked a true-false, so I'm going to delete that true-false question. And now I have a multiple choice, a multiple answer, short answer, matching, and even an essay. I'm going to decide to display the questions all at once. I'm going to show it when the page loads, and I will then click OK. Built into our program, you'll notice that when I choose an activity, there's a How-To button. The How-To button lets you watch a video tutorial on how to create each and every one of the activities. That same thing was true when I would modify, I'm going to modify this quiz group, there's a How-To button here that again lets you watch a video on how to create it. So it gives you very quick and easy access to creating content. Well, let's now take this. I'm going to do a few more things to my lesson. I'm going to give it a title, and I'll just call this my instructional design. And this will be my first lesson. So I'll call it lesson 1. And I'll then click OK. Now I'm ready to take this and I'm going to save it to the Softchalk cloud. It's then going to go and ask me, where do I want to put it? Well, I guess I'll just put it in my lessons and courses. I could put it in my instructional design folder, and I guess that would be a better location, just to make it easier for me to organize my content. So I'll save it as a personal lesson. If it's a personal lesson, I have the ability to use this content in my learning management system as a scorable item. If I make it public, it then becomes part of Softchalk Share. Well, I'm going to save it. It's packaging it. And in a couple of seconds, it's going to show us the upload progress or process of this particular lesson. It's saving it to my cloud storage. Once it gets to 100%, it verifies to make sure that it has uploaded successfully. I'll then click OK, and then I'll close this. I'm now going to navigate back into the cloud. I'll look in my lessons and courses area, and there is my instructional design lesson. I want to put this inside of Moodle. So I'm just going to scroll down, and I'm going to copy this LTI link. I'll then navigate into Moodle, where I've already logged in as an instructor, and I've entered the course that I'm going to put this in. I need to turn on editing, obviously, and I'm ready now to add something in my instructional design section. So I'll click. What I'm adding is an external tool. I'll then click on Add. I give this a name, so I'm going to click here, and I will then type in instructional design, or I'll just call it ID Lesson 1. Now what I want to do is I'm going to just click on my launch URL, and I'm going to paste that link that we previously copied, and I'm now ready to save this and return back to the course. Now the launch container can be modified. I can have it open in a new window, and I think if I keep it as the default, it opens from within the Moodle framework. So I have the ability to change quite a lot of different kinds of content. I can also put in a description if I would like. And then I can say save this and return back to the course itself. So I'll click on that, and there is my instructional design lesson. And you'll notice that I've already got a lesson up here that I've also have from the Softchalk Cloud. It's called my Algebra 2, or my algebra lesson. If I look at the grades for this algebra lesson, I see that Dirk Pitt, has already done that lesson, and he scored, he scored 78.8 points on that lesson. Let's go back into the content, and actually it was the history lesson. I'm going to click on this as the instructor, and it shows me the score center. We see that Dirk has a grade of 14 points. He has 2 attempts. If I look at it, I notice that in November, he actually scored 18. The scored, or the grades that go into the grade book, can be modified easily by changing the grading method. Rather than scoring it as the most recent, I can change that and say, well, let's make it their highest score, regardless of when they did it. So I'm going to change that grading method, and now notice his grade is 18. Well, if I go back into my admin area and I look at the grades, notice now it's 100%. So the scores the students earn is connected to the grade book in Moodle. Well, let me back up again. And let's see if we can now look at this instructional design lesson. I'll click on it. It then shows me my score center for this lesson. I'm ready to view the lesson. And notice how it's opening it within Moodle. As I look at this, I'm going to look at my adding or all of my content. And it's all one long page here. Oh, I guess that's nice. I see my text popper. I'll roll over that. It then also shows me an audio file here. I may need to enable it in this particular one. So I'm going to allow that to happen, allow QuickTime to happen. And as I roll over it, well, this is just telling me my screen for some reason doesn't have enough video processing to display the audio play bar. So I'll just close that. But that's my text pop-up. As I scroll down, there's my quiz question, where I can answer a question, check the answer, get immediate feedback. There's the drag and drop. The drag and drop activity works simply by dragging and dropping. If we put it in the correct location, it stays. If we put it in the wrong place, it snaps back. And when we finally get it in the correct location, it does not score any points. So people only score points if they get it on the first try. Once they finish, notice that total score is a combination of quiz questions as well as activities. The neat part about being able to restart is it shuffles the cards. Kind of cool. As I scroll down, there's our video from YouTube where we can watch that if we wanted to. Then we see our audio-video methods in teaching. If I click, it opens up a new browser window, because that's what I told it to do, and it displays that PDF file. I'll close that. As we scroll down, we also see another PDF file displayed directly in my lesson itself. That's our iframe display. I see all of the other information, including hyperlinks, and then I see my quiz questions, my quiz group, where we can check our answers and see, well, we didn't score real well. I didn't score very much. But I get to see how or as a student, I get to see the question and how I answered it. And that's what we've. But now I realize I have a little problem. I never described what the different methods of the ADDIE model were. Oh, I need to do that. So right at this location, I'm going to insert another Softchalk Cloud item. I am going to scroll and look for, inside of my files, I'm going to be looking for this package content. And I'm going to be adding that ADDIE BB package content. All right, well, it's now there. I also have decided I don't want one long page. So I'm going to be inserting page breaks within my lesson. I place the cursor where I want the page to end, and then I insert a page break. So I now have a 3-page lesson. Well, actually, I'm going to have even a 4th-page lesson. I can use keyboard shortcuts like Control-Enter to create page breaks. And now what I really would like to do is, rather than it displaying page 1, page 2, and page 3, I'm going to name my pages. My first page, this is my introduction, so I'll just call it my introduction to instructional design. My second page is where I start looking at systems, so I guess I'll call that my instructional systems. And then my third page is where we're looking at the ADDIE model, so I'll put in a title for that, and ADDIE. And then finally my last page, well, that's my instructional designers. So I'll just type in instructional designers, and I'm going to put in people down below. I've really changed my content that's already in my learning management system. Pretty neat. Well, let's add one more item here, and that would be, remember that activity that showed us a roadmap of instructional design? Well, I'm going to insert that activity, and again, it was inside of my learning objects. So I'll expand my learning objects folder and use that ID hotspot and insert it. I'll close this. A hotspot activity is created by adding an image, then taking a crayon and coloring in an area that you would like to define for that particular image, and then putting in text. What I'm going to do is just add another color here. So I'll scroll out until I get to a blank area, and I'm just going to outline this area. Now that it's outlined, I'm then going to fill it in, And I want my students to then get an idea of what I mean by instructional design. So I'll then click in this hotspot area and type. And then I click OK. And then I click OK. All right, so I've now modified a lot of information with this particular lesson. Let's take this and let's save it back to the cloud. I'm actually going to replace the original instructional design lesson with this updated version. And I'll click OK. Again, I'll see the progress that I have with this content being stored in my cloud. Once it reaches 100%, it's once again going to verify that the save has been successful. And then I'll be able to close this. Some other things that I can do with my content. I'll click OK and close. I actually have the ability to create an electronic book version of this lesson where the interactions that we've created, that drag and drop, will still work within a book reader. Wow, that's pretty cool also. And all I have to do is say, click on the ebook builder, give the book a title, put in the author name. If you have a graphic, you can use one. Otherwise, don't worry about it. I'm going to save this to the cloud. I'm going to make a couple of changes there. I'm saving my book to the cloud, and I'll call this my instructional design lesson 1. I'm going to put it inside of my ebooks folder that I've previously created, and I'll then tell it to save the ebook. So it's now saving that electronic version of my book. I could then distribute it simply by putting in a link inside of my lesson so my students can access this. Well, my book has now been saved. Now let's go back into Moodle and let's look at my instructional design lesson, and I'm going to view it, and you'll notice the changes. First of all, there's a title. I now have multiple pages that are now part of my design. When I click, it then navigates to that page, and instead of page numbers, I see words. My text popper is still a text pop-up. I'll go to my next page. The next page is where I have my quiz question and the drag and drop that you've already seen. When I go to the third page, this is where we have several different items. First, we see our definition of the ADDIE model using that packaged content that was created using some other program. All right, as I scroll further down, I get to see the video. I'll go to my next page, and this is where I have my instructional designers, where I now get to see, as the students roll over it, all of the content for each one of the bubbles or balloons that we created. Remember what we did. We modified our content after it was already in Moodle. If I would have used the same link in multiple lessons in Moodle, then all of them would be displaying the same correct content. And that's what we can do, and how easy it is to place your content into Moodle and create content using Softchalk Cloud and Softchalk Create. I didn't see any questions. Now, in the last minute or so, if you have any questions, now's a really good time to ask them. And if you think of any other questions later on, you could just email me, devans@softchalk.com. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much, David, for presenting. I just wanted to open up the floor to any questions that anybody might have. Feel free to use your mic. If you click on the bottom left-hand side, feel free to ask any questions. You can also use the chat box as well.
Now, I do see one question that asks, what's the cost of Softchalk? The cost of the Softchalk Cloud depends on how it's purchased. As a individual subscription, that would be one person creating content for a year. That's, I think it's $495, but I'm not really sure. If you buy it as a multiple package license, then the price per subscription then comes down. It's a very simple tool to use. Also, if I go into my Softchalk Cloud one more time and I go to the home screen, what you can also do is try a 30-day free trial of our program just to kick the tires and see how it works. Thanks, everybody.
All right, David, thank you so much. I appreciate your time today, and I'll talk to you soon, David.
All righty, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.